There is a version of effort we have learned to admire, the burst, the all-out push, the late night, the week where you throw everything at something and emerge exhausted but heroic. It feels like the real thing, it looks like dedication, and every so often it even works. But if you watch the people who actually build something lasting, you notice they rarely live like that. The effort is quieter, steadier, almost unremarkable from one day to the next. They are not sprinting, they are not burning out and recovering and burning out again. They are simply showing up at a level they can sustain far more often than everyone else. This is about why that quiet rhythm, consistency, beats the dramatic burst of intensity almost every time, and why it does so without ever needing to wreck you in the process. The appeal of intensity is that it feels like proof. When you push hard, when it hurts, when you are tired afterwards, you might read the strain as evidence that you are serious. Consistency offers no such drama. Showing up for a moderate, manageable effort day after day never feels heroic, and because it never feels heroic, we quietly assume it cannot be enough. So we oscillate. We wait until motivation strikes or the deadline looms, then throw ourselves at the work in a burst, exhaust ourselves and collapse back into nothing until the next burst arrives. From the inside, this feels like effort. From the outside, over time, it produces surprisingly little, because the bursts are separated by long stretches of nothing, and the nothing quietly undoes much of what the bursts achieve. Intensity without consistency is just a series of fresh starts, and a series of fresh starts is not progress. It is the same beginning, attempted over and over. So the shift is to stop asking, how hard can I push, and start asking, what can I sustain? These two questions produce completely different strategies. The first optimizes for the size of your effort on your best day. The second optimizes for the effort you can repeat on an ordinary one, and ordinary days vastly outnumber best ones. A moderate amount of work you can do almost every day will, over any meaningful period, dwarf an enormous amount of work you can only manage occasionally. The math is not close. Picture two people. One works intensely for one day, then stops for 9. The other works at a third of that intensity, but every single day. After a month, the steady one has done 3 times the work and, unlike the other, has not had to recover from anything. Consistency wins not by working harder, but simply by not stopping. The first reason consistency wins is sustainability. Intensity is, by definition, something you cannot keep up. That is what makes it intense. A burst draws down, reserves you then have to replace, which is why every period of intensity is followed by a period of recovery, and the recovery erases much of the gain. Consistency is the opposite. It is calibrated to be repeatable, deliberately set at a level you can return to tomorrow without needing to recover. This is why the steady person never has to start over. They never stop long enough to lose their place. The intense person, by contrast, is forever climbing back to where they were before the last collapse. Over months and years, this difference becomes enormous. One person is always rebuilding momentum from cold, the other has simply kept it warm the entire time, and momentum kept warm is one of the rarest advantages there is. The second reason is reliability. Intensity depends on conditions, not on motivation, on inspiration, on the deadline being close enough to frighten you. Those things are unreliable by nature. They come and go, and you cannot summon them on demand. So, an approach built on intensity is built on something you do not control. Consistency works differently. When something is done at a steady, moderate level often enough, it stops being a decision and becomes a default, part of the ordinary structure of your day, like a habit requiring almost no willpower at all. You no longer have to feel motivated to do it. You simply do it. The way you brush your teeth without negotiation. This is the quiet genius of consistency. It removes the need for the very thing intensity depends on. It does not wait to feel like it. It has stopped asking the question. The third reason is the deepest. Consistency builds things that intensity simply cannot. A single intense effort can produce a result, but it cannot produce trust, and it cannot produce skill, and it cannot produce identity, because all three are made of repetition. People trust what is consistent, not what is occasionally brilliant. A reliable presence earns a confidence that a dazzling then absent one never will. Skill is built the same way, through repeated practice rather than heroic bursts. And identity, the quiet sense of this is who I am and what I do, forms only when something is done so regularly that it stops being an activity and becomes a characteristic. Intensity can impress someone once. Consistency changes who you are. The burst is a performance. The rhythm becomes a person. And in the long run, what you have become matters far more than anything you once managed to pull off. We all know the story of tortoise and the hare, but we usually take the wrong lesson from it. We are told the tortoise won because the hare grew complacent and fell asleep. But that is not really it. The tortoise won because the tortoise never stopped. Slow, unremarkable, completely unimpressive to watch, and utterly relentless. The hare had all the intensity. The tortoise had all the consistency, and the consistency, given enough time, does not merely compete with intensity, it quietly humiliates it. The part of this is that the tortoise never had to suffer. It was never exhausted, never burnt out, never recovering. It simply kept moving at a pace it could hold forever. That is the real promise here. You can win the long race without ever having to wreck yourself to do it. So if you have been waiting to feel intense enough to begin, stop waiting. Intensity is not the entry fee, and it is not the strategy. Choose instead of a level of effort so modest that you could repeat it on your worst day, and then repeat it quietly without drama far more often than the people sprinting around you. Let them burn bright and burn out. You only have to keep arriving. If you want a calm, practical place to begin, there is a free resource in the description below. Start there. Intensity burns bright, then burns out. Consistency just keeps arriving.